Hey, welcome back to my YouTube channel. I'm Xavier Smith, and today I'm going to be talking about cycles of matter. So first, we're going to start with some keywords. A cycle is just a series of events that occur in a regular, repeating pattern. Then matter is anything that takes up space and has mass. A nutrient is a chemical substance an organism needs to survive, and the exchange of matter through the biosphere is called the biogeochemical cycle. And break that down. Bio is life, geo is rock, chemical is chemical, and cycle is, of course, a series of events that occur in a regular repeating pattern. So it's things that relate to life. There's rock involved, like these nutrients can get trapped in rock, and then there's chemical processes, and it's a regular repeating pattern throughout the biosphere. First, I'm going to talk about the water cycle. So, the water cycle, main things you need to know. You know, lakes and oceans. Well, there's solar energy. This energy basically heats up the water, and the water does something called evaporation, which means it is basically like pushed into the sky, pushed into the clouds, and water just sitting in clouds, all these water and dust particles, that's called condensation, and that makes a cloud. Then there's transpiration, which is all the water in, well, plants that is just lifted out. It's basically evaporating, but from plants. Transpiration, and then that goes to condensation. And then from condensation, all of this all of that water, at some point, it will all do something called precipitation, which is raining. We've all experienced rain, just rains down. And then there's other things like runoff to the ocean. There's percolation in the soil, which goes to groundwater. Groundwater eventually goes to the ocean. If you'd like to know more about this, please let me know if I should make a video on it individually. Now, the carbon and oxygen cycles. So there's a lot of carbon dioxide in our atmosphere, right? The way to get rid of the carbon dioxide in our atmosphere is through photosynthesis, where carbon dioxide is just given to these plants, and then they're like, okay, I'll give you glucose. So carbon dioxide and sunlight goes into these plants, and then boom, oxygen, glucose. So oxygen is created from carbon dioxide, but plants and animals both go through respiration, which is the opposite of photosynthesis, and they take that oxygen and they shoot it right back into carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. So the way to get rid of carbon dioxide and turn it into oxygen is through photosynthesis of plants, but respiration of plants and animals will throw that right back into the atmosphere. Then there's other things like diffusion, bicarbonate, sedimentation. But the other main thing you'd like to know is that carbon and oxygen enter a long-term cycle when they combine to form calcium carbonate. And then there's things like natural gas, which is just oil, sits in the ground, coal, and once coal is burned through a process called combustion, it is sent back into carbon dioxide. Again, if you'd like a video on this, just let me know in the comments. Then the nitrogen cycle. So some keywords. Nitrogen fixation is just the capture and conversion of nitrogen into a form that is usable by plants, and it's fixed by bacteria or electrical storms. So that's basically just turning nitrogen gas into nitrogen that can be used by plants. And then denitrification is where nitrogen goes back into the atmosphere. So nitrification is when the nitrogen in the atmosphere goes into just normal nitrogen. And then this is when bacteria and fixed nitrogen just go back to nitrogen gas, and these bacteria are just called denitrifying bacteria. So there's things like nitrogen in the atmosphere. Then there's nitrification, which there's nitrogen fixing bacteria in the soil. There's plants, dead organisms, and animal waste. They go to decomposers, and nitrogen goes through all these different forms, right? Then there's nitrifying bacteria, and it keeps going through forms, and it's recycled, can be used by the plants again, or it can be set to denitrifying bacteria, which will send that back through denitrification into the atmosphere. And then again, there's many different ways nitrification can happen. It's like, oh, straight from the atmosphere, nitrification, it can go straight into NO3 negative down here and then straight to plants. But there's a ton of things going on here. Just denitrification and nitrification, nitrogen fixation. So nitrification is just turning this atmospheric nitrogen into just normal nitrogen. And then this nitrogen fixation over here, like nitrogen fixing bacteria, nitrifying bacteria, they turn that normal nitrogen into nitrogen that can be used by plants, and it gets recycled, and eventually it may hit some denitrifying bacteria, and then that normal nitrogen is sent back into nitrogen gas and back into the atmosphere. If you'd like a video on that, also let me know. Now, last but not least, the phosphorus cycle. Phosphorus is essential for growth and development of organisms. The phosphorus cycles quickly through sediments, plants, and consumers. Phosphorus can also be weathered or eroded from rocks and then is added into the cycle. And phosphorus can be locked into a long-term cycle through a process with organic materials at the bottom of the ocean. So here there is a process where there's like phosphate in the solution, then it goes to organisms, then it goes to this cycle, then it'll be locked in a long-term cycle because it turns into mineable rock. And it's just rock. It's not in the atmosphere. It's just sitting in the ground. So there's a lot of things that go on here. Just remember that it is cycled through sediments, plants, and consumers. Like down here, there's plants and animal waste. Go straight to decomposers, then just phosphate in the soil. And it's eventually mineable rock if it's in a long-term cycle, but it is quickly cycled through sediments, plants, and consumers. Just remember here at the bottom of the ocean, it can turn into rock, and then, of course, it's trapped. But sometimes this rock can erode or be weathered, and, well, it's sent back into the cycle. I hope this was helpful. Please like and subscribe if it helped you. Thank you.